I am thrilled to partner with Ancient and Brave. I am all about creating space for well-being in my day-to-day. And with Ancient and Brave, you can find your own ritual with their sustainably sourced collagen, blends and supplements, whatever your well-being goals. You can add a scoop of collagen or a dash of MCT oil to your morning coffee for the ultimate habit stack. What's more, Ancient and Brave are proud members of 1% for the Planet, meaning 1% of all their sales goes directly to environmental causes. So by adding true collagen to your wellness routine, you can take care of yourself and the planet too. For more details, visit ancientandbrave.earth/planet and discover how your choices can make a difference. Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I am your host, Caroline Marshall, and please welcome Jelena Skene, agency turned tech founder of Pressflow and mother of two in their early years, I'm going to add, with a background in digital marketing for major fashion and lifestyle brands. In March 2024, Jelena co-founded Pressflow Limited with her husband, a free PR platform that connects experts, PR professionals and journalists. Pressflow provides unlimited free pitching, making it an accessible tool for small businesses, personal brands, PR professionals and experts seeking media exposure. Not their first business, prior to Pressflow, Jelena and her husband ran an agency and together through COVID juggled the demands of new parenthood and founder life for the first time, which I can't wait to delve into. But before we do, Jelena, I mean, I've told you this, but I have to say it on the podcast, is that I heard about Pressflow, signed up the next day, and within weeks had a big feature in Yahoo alongside Michelle, the founder of Peanut. And so it was great. So I am literally advertising your brand, that it works. So everyone sign up to Pressflow.
Yay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the intro, by the way. You've done that so much better and more professional than I would have ever done it.
Well, I do that on purpose, not because you would do an amazing job, but I also feel like people forget what they have achieved, and it's a bit to big you up of even though you're in the early days with Pressflow and things, it's like what you've achieved, and while you've got two young ones, both you and your husband together, and it is amazing. I think no matter what stage of your journey, we need to celebrate that. So tell me a bit. So what was your background? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Yes, things took a lot of turns throughout my career. Growing up, thought I wanted to have a much more serious career, so I actually studied law. My mum's a lawyer and I law, which was totally the wrong thing for me because it turns out I'm creative and I love kind of shifting in things, and I just need more to my life than a corporate. And so I ended up moving to London in my early 20s, and I actually studied fashion. Complete 360. I then, when it was time to get a job, got into marketing and was very lucky to have been able to kind of get into fashion marketing. And I've had some I've genuinely loved a lot of my time during that. I really have to say that, because it kind of brings out a really nice creative side of you. You're still very analytical, kind of doing the marketing side whilst being able to work in fashion. I genuinely loved it. However, coming into my late 20s, which is what I'm starting to talk about, shifting, I think maybe during our parents' generation, it was a lot more kind of normal to just kind of pick something, do it, and have that as a career. But I've kind of felt during my life, every stage was almost kind of, I had different needs and things that I wanted to achieve. While fashion was great in my 20s, sort of towards the end of that, it kind of just started feeling me a little bit empty. I felt like I needed a bit more out of my career. It felt a bit static, maybe even. And, my mindset was changing. My personal interests were kind of stopping. I wasn't really that interested in fashion anymore, basically. It was more turning towards different things. Wellness was really exploding. I started getting more into that side of things. That was really when I started realizing that maybe having my own business, being more on the side of the, entrepreneur, having a hold on to who I'm working with. I also felt I was very lucky to gain such great experience through my 20s in terms of marketing that I felt almost like ready and like knew I could give my clients a lot more than, you know, if I kind of started freelancing straight in my 20s.
Can I ask, were you also starting to think about children at this stage? Because I do think that's the pivot of the late 20s if you're in a relationship and just starting to think about.
That's exactly it. So like my husband and I actually met during my early 20s. So at this point we were together for like 8-9 years, and I was I was 30 pretty much when I started the first business. And yes, the part of that was kind of thinking, what would my life look like if I had a kid and came back? Whilst it sounds very like cool working in fashion, it's a very much desk job, 9 to 6, right? And you like, how do you manage that with kids? We're also talking pre-COVID, so we're talking like 2018, 2019. There was no working from home. There was not like flexible working that, even though it probably existed in some fields, like maybe tech, or like if you're working for like a startup, it definitely didn't exist very much in the companies where I was working. And then that's fine. That was how the teams were built. That was what we signed up for. And I sort of felt like, you know, if I get into this, it was kind of like more long-term planning. Like, you know, if I'm able to have my own business, then I'm able to control my hours so much better with kids. And it just sort of felt like a really natural progression.
I love that you thought about that ahead, because we've had a lot of women on the podcast who have been in fashion, and they might have even gone back after the first child and then found after the second it's impossible. That's like a common theme with that industry, which I think is really good to raise awareness of. But I think it's also really important that I love the fact that you went to business ownership, because so many women in your position would have thought, what about maternity pay? So did that come to your mind?
Do you know what? It did. And this is such like, I feel like this is a part of like misconception again. Like I worked in fashion. None of the companies that I worked, like, I don't want to single anyone out, but like none of the companies that I was looking at or applying had anything more than a statutory maternity pay.
Thank you so much, because I was employed with my first, and it was a startup, and it was only statutory. And I think that is something that business owners can really look at, of like, oh, my friends, they've even said it on this podcast, my friends will work in these corporate jobs and get 6 months to a year. And I'm like, that it's so often not the case, and it shows you're not singling a company out. That's an industry-wide thing, and that's not what you think about when you're 22 and want to go into fashion, which we should have women in fashion.
Think I wanted kids when I was 22, but genuinely I kind of started like adding things up, weighing things up, and I know that it keeps people kind of in jobs to get use of it. But basically and I'm jumping ahead now a little bit, but what ended up happening is that I was able to kind of pool a lot more money by working very reduced hours on my maternity leave than what I would have gotten from the statutory at any point. And you also kind of feel like at least I had like a bit of a head start where I like started my business and then became pregnant and then went through the maternity. So I was able to but I felt like if I stayed in my full-time role, I would have had so much pressure put on me if I wanted to pivot during that time and then start, so I have something to go back to basically at the end of that. So I definitely think there's kind of like, as you say, like there's a little bit of a misconception there that kind of everyone has this like amazing maternity leaves.
I think it's really good to raise awareness, that is, and most like there's a lot of businesses that can afford statutory, that's fine, but it is good to raise awareness, like not to make it all doom and gloom about businesshood. I was actually quite pleasantly surprised I got stat mat pay with my being a freelancer, which I was at the time with my second. But it did change in COVID. Obviously, it didn't go to plan for you guys. So what happened there?
So I think I was about 6 months pregnant when COVID hit, and at that stage, right? So when I finally decided to go freelance, just to rewind a little bit to add context, because I've kind of like built up relationships pretty well by that stage. I was in London like for 10 years at that time. I was very lucky to kind of just been pushed in with working with a couple of agencies, and my client portfolio just started really naturally growing. And I think within the first 3 months, I kind of like already had an assistant, but very much still in the freelance stage, just thinking about, is this something bigger? Like, is there a business here? And I think I was already pregnant. I became pregnant maybe like 7 months into being freelance. I may be making this up, but I get it. It was now a while back, but it was months. It wasn't years. decided to incorporate when I was about 3 months pregnant. So when I say we, it was myself and my husband. The reason why we kind of chose to do it together was like I was starting to bring in like more marketing performance clients, and he already had a really, really well established content business, but it was primarily like filming and like making content rather just like sitting and editing.
So in person, basically.
In person, a lot of traveling, but with really amazing established clients. So that was another kind of reason why I was able to go freelance, because that's another thing to say here. Like my husband had a very good established income. So I was able to kind of give myself a little bit of freedom in terms of like, if it takes a few months, you know, it takes a few months. Yes, so November we incorporated. I remember it really well because we went to a trip in New York in January, came back, and basically COVID started coming into Europe. Like the whole thing started unraveling, and we had a whole year lined up in terms of like my husband's work and the money that he would be putting into the agency. And one by one, trips just started like getting cancelled. So basically, like as the travel restrictions came in, like throughout we literally started like pinging in emails going like, you know, that's been cancelled, that project's been cancelled, that project. We kind of know really like know what was going on, what was about to happen. And I mean, I was like now getting like quite close to my due date, right? With January, I gave birth in May. And, you know, my plan was like, I'll keep the clients that I have on. My husband's going to help manage. He's got his own clients. I've got an amazing assistant that I can like train up over the next few months to kind of help. And we basically kind of realized that we've lost about 80% of our revenue by February. Yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot that was coming in from like the content side, because obviously it was a lot more established. I was very lucky that with the performance side, we managed to win quite a big contract just before January with an amazing brand. And they didn't, because they were well funded, they didn't end up pausing any of their work. But even on the performance side, we had people going like, well, we've got a lockdown happening, we don't know what's going on, so like even on that side, literally we started seeing like emails like pinging like, we want to pause, we want to stop. Like it was a lot of shift. Anyway, sort of May came, we had steady, let's say, all right, revenue coming through. I was able to keep my assistant, my husband was able to help, and I gave birth. And sort of we literally had to play it by ear at this stage. And I think I took a week off properly and was then like back on emails.
Wow.
Literally. But and I know that like this may sound like really crazy right now, but if we look back on like May, we were like deep lockdowns, nothing was happening. I was literally, all that I was doing was just sitting at home breastfeeding and like emailing my assistant or chatting to my assistant, emailing the clients, like having a look at their performance. It feels a lot more intense. Like people were coming up to me like, I can't believe, not coming up because we weren't allowed to like be next to other people, but emailing me kind of going like, why, how are you back at work? How are you doing this? I'm like, it's fine. It's actually, guys, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's no like the baby's sleeping or breastfeeding or sleeping or, you know. And basically from then on, things just started rolling in, and we just like, we made it work, because basically post-COVID, like as soon as it sort of hit, and realized there's a huge opportunity for digital marketing. All of a sudden, everyone under this planet wanted to do digital marketing, right? So we basically had in that summer, a complete boom of new clients. And by the end of the year, we hired, I think we were on like 5 of us.
Wow.
In the team.
That's amazing.
And I was doing, like, looking back on it now, like my son would have been like 6 months in November of that year. So like by that stage, we just, and like, yes, you kind of look back and think that was a bit intense, but it didn't really feel like it at the time, because I had so much support. Like I sub-hired. I wasn't really allowed to leave my house anyways. My husband was able to take the baby whenever I needed him to, you know. It didn't actually feel as intense as, like, you know, saying to someone I came back to work a week after I gave birth.
Yeah, especially in a world where now you've got all the opportunities of socializing with others, opportunities of taking your baby to things. I think we had someone, Lauren, Women of Web3. Do you know her? She came on and she did the same with her business. It was the same time period as you, really. And she was like, I was doing nothing at home, so she fell down a Web3 hole. And I think it was, in a weird way, if you, like said, you had your husband there who was working on the same thing, it would have been different if he was, you know, in a different industry, not doing that at all. And, you know, you made the most of a very challenging period, basically.
That's why, like, now when I speak to women, like, looking to get into like starting their own business and like trying to plan stuff around it, trying to plan their family, like, you know, around it, you can't.
No.
It's in you. You need to get it out. Like, you need to start that business. So yeah, that's my kind of 2 cents on that.
And do you think, in your household, if you don't mind me asking, do you think it's made it more equal, like the parental load? Because I think COVID did that for some families in general, but do you think especially like you're like, I need to get this done, and he knows business wise you need to get that done, so he has to take the kids. Do you think that has made it real equal in your house? How does it fall?
My husband and I have always kind of had that, like, a really positive relationship when it comes to equality. It helps that we've always kind of like been on the same level of like earnings, you know, we both kind of had like similar goals in our careers. But again, you're getting into a completely new level of a relationship. You never know how it's going to work out. I do think that it completely balanced everything out. Like, I really, again, you know, speaking to some of my friends or like, you know, other women in business, it hasn't been, I haven't had the same experience as many other women have, because we just, you know, like in the morning, my husband would get up with the baby so that I can get some extra sleep. So then he would, like, you know, go back to bed. I would get up, do all my work in the morning whilst the baby was napping. It just felt like I really, like, during that first year. He doesn't think that. He doesn't really understand it, because he was like, oh, but you did all the breastfeeding for the first year. I was like, I did that. That's not, for me, that wasn't like the hard bit, right? The hard bit, the emotional load, the mental load for like, right, we could share all of that. If anything went wrong, and turn around and be like, right, this happened today. You know, that client shouted at me, and he was like, you know, there's a lot more in that than just like the physical things. I don't think he understands how much like it really helped me. And I would say this is quite unusual, but like I definitely struggled like with my mental health a lot more during pregnancy than I did after. And I can't tell you now why that is, but I do have a feeling that because everything fell into place the way it has, I genuinely loved it from day one. And if I turn back to Jelena that was pregnant, like, I didn't love it. I was very anxious. I was like, oh my God, what's about to happen? I'm not ready for this. You know, we should have maybe waited, you know, but as soon as like my son Callum was born, I was like, this is the best ever. You know, I really felt for that first year, you know, I could have it all. And then I had a second.
I love that. And then, which we'll talk about a bit, because we bonded a bit over toddler boys. And I was going to say that I think a key part that really stood out for me there is that maybe this is just me, but your finances being equal, because I think that's where it can really, really fall, is when often, and I see this, I've been an assistant working for men, where men who've recently had babies are then asking their bosses for pay rises because they have to, because their wife isn't earning as much. And then it suddenly goes, I think, in a lot of relationships like this, and I think that can be key. Not for everyone. Like, my husband out earns me, but my income's very much still needed. And he respects the business and the potential of it. But I know it's not, everyone doesn't have the same money mindset with that. And if it's on paper, if it's not equal, then we have to, which is, I think I can also imagine that helps as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, COVID definitely presented you with opportunities. What has, you know, I definitely think your maternity leave kind of had to look that way, otherwise you would have been bouncing off the walls, because it wasn't the same during COVID. But how did you had your second not too far apart from your first, did you? I did the same. Suddenly my baby turned into an 18-month-old toddler who said no and walked in the wrong direction. I was like, what have I done? Why am I having another one?
Yeah, I think too far with the second one and the business and everything. But so I didn't put into this is that basically sort of beginning of, I think Callum must have been about 8 months. So it was beginning of 21. We decided to, because everything was like closed off effectively, and we were working online. I've literally to this day haven't met some of my clients. So just to kind of like add a bit of spice there, we were like, we've had this like long-term dream that we want to spend some time in Barcelona. So we went, like we had a flat in London that we rented, very lucky in that. And we packed up our stuff and went to Barcelona with a 8-month-old baby, I think, at that stage.
Amazing.
So we loved it. We ended up staying there for 2 years. And to be honest, like, it was great. Like the people that we were employing were mostly in the UK. Again, we were kind of going in and out of lockdowns. I think there was a really long lockdown, if I can remember, like early 2021.
That's the one I
Yeah.
had my second baby in. So it's a long lockdown.
That was really tough. And that was basically the time that we ended up spending in Barcelona. We just basically, like, again, we got a little bit lucky here. We didn't plan this too much, but you were at the time able to like rent your usual kind of Airbnbs for a fraction of a price for like months. So we just got like Airbnb for 6 months. And we ended up like extending our stay and staying a little bit over, because when we found out that I was pregnant with my second one, we didn't really quite understand what it was going to look like, but we have decided I'm going to be able to like take some time off at that stage. And we thought, we may as well just use the fact that we're in Barcelona. Amazing healthcare, by the way, there when you're pregnant.
So did you have your baby in Barcelona?
My second one was born in Barcelona.
And it didn't feel like worrying being, different to your first?
No, it was actually a lot like, I was actually really positively surprised by how amazing their healthcare is. And like,
amazing.
I checkups, like ultrasounds almost every month. When the baby's born, you have every month. It's a very different experience to hear. Again, going back to my first birth, and what I didn't say is like, it was a very straightforward birth. Like I was very lucky in that. And I think that also really helped with everything that happened after, because I know that that's not always the case for women.
And again, that's a really good point. It does help you if you've had a positive birth. You can, you just feel there's less to process, isn't there?
Exactly. So sadly, we always knew that Barcelona wasn't going to be kind of a forever place, because it's not like I love it. It feels like my second home. It's not because I'm originally Croatian, but I feel it.
You had a positive time there, so it is. Yeah, you can be your second.
My second child was born there. We're always going to have a relationship with the city. I would have gone back in a heartbeat if I could, but we basically.
I was going to say, how come you came back?
Well, so the thing was, we spent 2021 just like basically working from there. Brady came in January 2022, so like 20 months after Callum. And I basically took about full 6 months off at that stage, because it just became, I was like, my body needed it, my mind needed it. We were a lot more established than when we started. We had people working for us full time. My husband was able to like manage a lot of the business, and we kind of just decided to like stay there for a little bit more, because again, I was in a sunny country with 2 small children. I could be outside for the majority of the day. The business was very much in the UK, but with time things started opening up again. The kids we needed to start thinking about schools, just thinking a little bit more long term. And we then actually just made the decision to come back to the UK. I also didn't want to do too much traveling, because I want to be close. I've got I still get anxiety about leaving my kids. So like having to like get on a plane once a month to like do client meetings and stuff like that just wasn't for me. But I feel like we did the best that we can in that situation. Like we got the most out of it in every single way. Honest to God, like looking back right now, I'm like, that was insane. Business, 2 babies, foreign country.
I think that's it. If you're the type to go for it, similar COVID story with my business as well. Not like different, but just going all in and going for it. And I think there's something in COVID, if you're of that personality, which you and your husband clearly are, and you're of childbearing age, you just cracked on with. But that's amazing. And you did. You got pregnant less than 2 years before, and I've now appreciated how much recovery it is. Now you're a bit more out of it. I'm sure you feel the same. You realise your body wasn't fully recovered the second time, and that's probably why you're feeling absolutely exhausted.
There's baby hairs coming out yesterday. That's such a clear sign. I turned around to my husband. I was like, 3 years after I've given birth, like my body is still recovering, and I don't know if that has anything to do with like having them so close together, or so like as you said, like my body hasn't fully recovered. Thankfully, I was like early 30s. I think I managed it all right, but you definitely don't kind of understand or appreciate what a toll it takes.
And it's nice to be able to now appreciate that, and I think we are starting to talk about that more, because I was like, oh, it's just what you do. Like me, I'm 2 years between me and my sister, loads of my friends are as well, and you're like, oh, actually that is hard going on our bodies and hard on us as people.
Absolutely. I think it's easy. Like I love the age difference now, because actually they're into the same stuff. They're into the same toys. They've got like similar friends. We've actually moved back. When we moved back from Barcelona, we decided to not come back to London, but we're living in the Cotswolds. Literally, we're in a tiny village in the middle of Cotswolds. Big adjustment for me because I am a city girl through and through. But now I look out the window, like I can see horses passing by.
And how's that been for work as well? Because your contacts and everything were London.
Yes. So we're still like, nothing happens in the Cotswolds business wise, by the way. Like there's nothing here. I always have this like insanely funny like ideas of like filming content here for our business. I'm just like standing above the field going like, free PR, anyone? But so the decision to move here is basically, my husband is from here. We're like the only people that have moved, not the only, but a lot of people move to the Cotswolds because they really like it. And like, we're just here like because our family's here. And I basically have a really good connection with London. So I'm in London in like an hour and 15 from my station. So it's super easy, and everything still for us happens in London.
I would say, do you feel, I think since the world's opened up and everything, I think it's that understanding again that cities are still really important for those connections.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. And like London as well, like I have my good days with London and bad days with London, but I always
everyone does,
about it, right?
Yeah, preach.
Yeah, exactly. I was speaking to my husband about this yesterday. You know, you often see like so and so is the new London. There's still that pull there. I think when you're a founder that you can't necessarily find in many other places. And I think it's certainly being back for us, as much as I miss the sunshine and everything else that's amazing about Spain, because let's face it, it's an amazing place. But we, like in terms of the business stuff, like being back here, I can sense, you know, we sort of came back and I sort of felt like, okay, I'm back in a room with people, you know, it just genuinely automatically opens doors. So I feel like for us, for me, definitely like countryside is something I'm still getting used to, but it'll be my whole life. Like, still getting used
Let me know how long it takes you, just asking for a friend if I ever get taken out of London.
The kids love it though. The kids love it.
Yeah.
There's so much space, you know. I think that also, by the way, really helps. And I also sort of felt like I lived so much of my life in my 20s and my 30s like this. I've got to give back at this point. Like if they're happy, I'm happy. You know, it's not that bad. But just readjustment, I guess.
And so can I ask, so how and what's it look like? So how come you pivoted to Pressflow then? What's the start of Pressflow?
I'm going to be honest, Pressflow's been in the making since like 2020, but we just couldn't really put another thing onto our plate. And the agency was doing really well. And, you know, that was just something we had to focus on. So as an agency, we actually did a lot of digital PR and SEO. That was we were kind of full service, but that was what me and my partner enjoyed the most.
Specialists.
Like, we really loved that. And we kind of were using the tools that were out there. And we were like, this is not, like, it's all right, but this is not great, maybe. Or like, we sort of felt, you know, when you get that thing when you're like, well, I could just do it a bit better.
That's, you know, a lot of founders can relate to that. That's just why you get started. I can do that. I'll just do it better.
And the one thing I have learned from this is like, you know, you don't necessarily always need a super, super original idea. I'm not saying to like plagiarize other businesses out there, but you know, in certain spaces, there's always going to be competition, like PR softwares, you know, they've been around for like how long? And I kind of feel like, you know, there was a definite gap in the market, especially in the UK for a tool like ours, because, you know, businesses need PR, and we kind of felt like there was definite space for a tool that caters to like not just big PRs, but also like smaller PR agencies, founders, you know, like from the journalist side as well, they want access to this. So we felt like, you know, the timing and the market was quite right in terms of like starting last year. And we also come with like a wealth of marketing experience at this point. So we were able to do a lot of this. Like, I have to say, like, we're completely self-funded. We haven't we haven't done any like raise round, anything like that as of yet. But again, like, there was a bit of strategic, like, when I look back now, there wasn't a lot of strategic thinking in my life, but like this was actually quite strategic, where we like my husband can do like all of the UX, all of the design, like I can do all of the marketing, he can do all of the content. Like we have a lot of skills needed to get this started by ourselves. So what we did is we basically, while still running the agency last year, we were able to like pull some funding out of that and put it into Pressflow. So it was very much born out of kind of like, you know, a marketing agency makes this really cool tool.
Amazing. Did you build the tool yourself or bring on people to help you build it?
We have an amazing developer back in Croatia. He's so good, and he's kind of the only person that we are hiring at this stage. So yeah, everything else you see is like us.
And are you still running the agency, or have you closed that
We're
down?
still running the agency. My husband has taken on a lot more of the agency work now. So the agency is still sort of running in the back end. But I'm fully focused now on Pressflow because it really needs that like wind in its back now to make it work. Because within the first 3 months, we've pretty much hit 1,000 users. So
amazing.
like that, I kind of like, I keep going back to this, you know, because you have doubts and things about anything that you do, I think, as a founder. But I was kind of like, based upon what we've put out there, like I even did a post about this on LinkedIn yesterday, but like our website is like, I could hide behind the bush how much I hate it and how simple it is. But people are signing up and people are using it. We had like 50 pitches go out yesterday from like PRs and founders. So
amazing.
Like it's really now gaining traction, hence why we've made the decision, even though we're not, just to be transparent, we are pre-revenue.
I was gonna say, what is your plan for revenue? How are you going, like, are you going out there for revenue, or are you going to get your customers to start paying? What's the plan?
Yeah, so the plan is, we honestly, like, end of last year, we were like, we're going to fundraise. We're going to use the first 3 months of next year to fundraise. We're going to get some money in, then we can just kind of relax, continue building it. And then we kind of beginning of the year, we were like, oh, but what if we just did it like a little bit, you know, what if we like managed to get to like the revenue stage of it? And we've managed to kind of move things around. We're now in a position where we're building the next stages of the platform. So like the current stage, whilst I do love it, it's very much MVP. And we kind of wanted to make sure that like it works.
MVP, for anyone who doesn't know, is minimal viable product. So it's the place where it can be used. Like, I've used your product and it's used. That's right, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But not like the finish. So it's kind of like the minimum that you need to put on the market to test it. And I feel like we've actually done that really well somehow. And we're now building the next stages. So whilst so this is kind of why we're doing what we're doing, is because we want to open PR to everyone, and everyone has different needs. So your founder is going to have different needs to your PR companies that we're actually seeing now come onto the platform that have like 50 plus employees. We actually, like, I didn't quite realize this, but PRs were like very much the first adopters, whereas they just came on and just like knew what to do. Whereas I think with founders, we've got a little bit more work to do, because I feel like sometimes people come on that don't really know how to use the platform. So the current level is staying free, because as a founder, you don't need other necessarily fancy options. But we're now injecting some really, really cool features that will be on a higher tier. So they'll carry a price to it, but we're like doing our absolute best. And like, I don't know if this is going to be like to a detriment at the end, but like coming from a space when we worked with smaller companies and where we worked with like, you know, ourselves as an agency, we weren't huge. Like, we just want to make sure that everyone has a space on our platform, because what we've seen is like a lot of really fancy cool tools out there that I'm sure are amazing, but they sort of like wedge themselves in, like, we're for the big guys. And I sort of feel like there's nothing really that's like great out there that's for the smaller guys and then can expand to the big guys even. So we're actually injecting some really cool AI features, and yes, it's going to be really great. Like, it's still very much in progress, so I don't want to like talk about it too much. But it's going to streamline the platform a lot, and it's going to like streamline it for like the founders that really want to get in, like their teeth stuck into like PR, and not to mention for PRs themselves, because, you know, we're kind of removing some of the manual work that's currently being done. And then we're doing a huge draft on getting a lot more publications onto it. So yeah, lots and lots of exciting conversations happening. I'm literally at this point kind of speaking to, you know, when we were developing the platform, I had a couple of, you know, brands that I was like, oh, I'd love it if they're using Pressflow. And now, like, I've actually had one of those brands come onto Pressflow. And I was like,
Amazing. That's like vision boarding at its finest, even if you've done it in your head. Like, I want this brand, and then you've taken the steps to
exactly.
do that. I do believe in that. Or action boards, if you are a fan of Dr. Tara Swartz, she's great. Honestly, passion comes out so much, and I heard about you for Female Founders Rise. What have you felt about finding your community and getting this out there, as because obviously like business owners are your target audience as well, so how important has that been to you guys in getting to this stage?
I think that was one of the crucial parts of like marketing that you like can't, and visibility that you just can't pay for. It's very easy to like chuck some budget behind it and get like people onto the platform, but what happened to us is basically, so I joined Female Founders Rise, which was like the first ever networking event I've like done pretty much like my life. And I was always a bit like, oh God, network. I mean, we all hate it. There's no. And I went into the event February of last year, and I was just like, I loved it. It's like, I really felt like I found everyone in there. And I don't know if it's like the female energy or whatever, but it's just like so open, so welcoming. What I found was like the connections that you make through that is just like a next level. So like the doors that it opens, like everyone being so supportive towards each other's businesses. Like, so many people came onto a platform because someone recommended them. You really can't pay for that. And my one learning from like last year is like, get yourself into like communities, like not just for the sake of like promoting your business, but like there's just so much more there when you're like fast starting out. It's almost like the MVP of your product sometimes, because you're able to like make those relationships and like, you just never know what kind of door is going to open for you. And as a founder, you just often don't have, you don't have a room of people that you can like get in front of or like talk to, or and this is your room. Like I feel like with communities, this is your room. So it's definitely like, Female Founders Rise has been absolutely amazing. Love Emmy, she obviously founded it. It's been amazing that like someone has come up with that idea, and it's now like become a shelter almost for like so many founders. And it's really pushed me towards being, I think the one thing as well is like it's really pushed me to be able to like walk into like other events now and be like, this is okay, like I can handle
this.
So that's kind of like a big learning from like last year.
What do you think, because now you spent time with lots of amazing, ambitious women, do you still think there's a bit of a narrative out there that women, once we hit motherhood, just aren't as ambitious and can't give ourselves to our businesses as much?
Yeah, of course. I mean, let's face it, we're like so much more restricted sometimes. I'm still the first person that the school will call if my child is ill. They literally sometimes won't even call my husband. They'll like call me 3 times. And,
You're like, we're working on the same thing here.
I'm always way more busy, by the way, so that's always so busy. My kids come back from school at 3 p.m, but it's like I've got so much more drive that I had like before kids. You also like, I feel like your brain just like switches, and you just get stuff done. Like I honestly, like if you met me pre-kids, this is not the Jelena that you were like. I'm just like so much more open, outspoken, like you kind of like get into that a completely different phase of your life. I think like, more women, mom founders should exist.
Yeah,
like,
you kind of realize how powerful you are, and
you are.
Yeah. You agree? I think.
Oh yeah, fully.
Yeah.
Fully. I'm like, I've got this. It's like, I've given life to 2 amazing kids and like survived the first year of whatever that was twice.
Twice,
it's business. It's fine. You can totally do it. And you become more focused. Like certainly like some aspects of my life, like I don't want to put out a picture where I'm like, I have it all. I don't have it all. Like I don't really have a social life anymore. It's like I've got my kids, I've got my business, and like I'm okay with that for now. I'm sure that's going to evolve into something else. But yes, the drive that you get post motherhood is definitely something that I feel like people maybe don't kind of still necessarily respect from either, by the way, founders or women going back into work. It's tough, but we're all trying to change that, I guess.
I know, I think that's it. I really kind of just have this hope that keeps me going, is that our generation is like trying to appreciate the change we're going through, and also like, but keep going so it can be better again for the ones before us, because women had to work work a certain way in order to be seen in those positions, and now we're pushing the other narrative of working a different way and still achieving it, kind of thing.
I think for me as well, and probably for you as well, we've got 2 boys. I want to install a narrative into them that like their wife is probably going to work, and they need need to support that if she wants to work, you know. So like I want them to see a mum, as hard as it is sometimes that I work a lot, you know, or I need to plug them into TV for an hour, like to do my emails. I'd rather not be doing that, but I'm like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I am present because of the way that I'm working. I'm really present for them. But also, you know, I hope that I'm installing into them, like, okay, because my mum was like that. My mum worked. My mum was actually the main breadwinner in our family, like when I was growing up. So like, Amazing. It's just never been an option for me not to, like, because I've seen that. Yeah. So I'm hoping that they take that away with them as well when they grow up.
Exactly that. And I had Sasha, the founder of Olio, on here, and her son is 12, 13 now, and he goes to school saying, my mum's the founder of Olio. And I'm like, that, if anything, like us with kids in the early years, I think that should keep us all going. Because I think my son came home the other day and said, oh, do you know so-and-so's dad's runs his own business? So I was like, yeah, he's a client. I was like, of my business, so let's talk about that. And it's starting to instill in them. It's like, ignore the dads running businesses, your mother here as well. And it's about bringing that in with them. And do you feel, because you've got that with your boys, do you think, I like to talk about purpose a little bit. I think sometimes people think children help you find your purpose, but my purpose with the business is so multifaceted. It's the assistant industry, it's clearly mothers who are founders, it's not just providing and giving my boys a role model. How have you found your purpose change since becoming a mother?
I mean, I would say it's actually been really, like, as hard as this whole process is, I think it's really kind of grounded me. And I also feel like kids really ground you a lot, you know, like no matter how good or bad things are, like at the end of every day, like just brings you back to what's actually important. And I think that kind of like really helps me, like, especially in the current mindset when things are not, you know, things are not great every day. There's a lot of great days, there's a lot of bad days. But I think that groundness that you get from the kids, like, it just means that, like, next you can open up a new page and, like, just have, and you kind of, like, go again. I think what's really helped me with as well is, like, a bit of a routine and a bit of, like, because if it was just me, I mean, God knows where I would be living right now. And, like, you know, I would have definitely
working all the hours probably as well. I do think it helps with that.
Right. That's something that I haven't said as well. Like, actually being able to, like, work from 9 till 3 is so limiting. But, like, in that time, I can just get so much done and then just, like, step away. It's not to say that I switch my head off. Like, I still think about business a lot. But I can just step away, go outside, spend, like, an hour with my kids in the park. Like, that helps with so much of the mental load, I think, as well. And so, yeah, that sort of stability, I think, that they brought into my life is probably something that I, like, needed more than I thought I needed. There wouldn't be Pressflow if it wasn't for the kids, by the way. Like, and I think it's like the legacy as well of, like, you know, having a successful business that I'm hoping that will, you know, help my kids with whatever they want to achieve is incredibly important to me as well. Because, like, you know, one day I want them to, like, turn around and say, like, I want to be a beekeeper. Great, you can be a beekeeper. That's something that, like, has really given me a purpose to, like, I don't want to use the word succeed. Like, you know, we've all already succeeded with what we have, but it's more just like leave a legacy of something.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Honestly, I've got a couple more questions. So my first one, just to see, I think small business owners everywhere, freelancers will be like, how do I get PR through pitching? What are your top 3 tips if they're going on a platform like yours?
Right. So the way the Pressflow works at the moment, and this is, like, going to expand into, like, you know, a fully fledged PR software. But the way that it works at the moment is, so we've got journalists coming onto the platform that are basically looking for specific expertise that will then get you featured in, like, some really, really cool publications. So my tip number 1 is read what the journalist is asking for. This is the thing that, like, I've seen PRs do, but I just don't always see founders do. And it's, like, the easiest tip. Don't pitch something that you're not an expert in, because it's just going to annoy the journalist. And, you know,
I've heard that. Like, I've seen it in other platforms. Yeah,
it's, like, really, really bad practice. And also, like, you know, you're better off pitching like once a month with like a really good pitch than like 5 times a month when you're not really exactly what they're looking for. So I would say read the pitch really carefully. There's also like sometimes they're going to say, you know, I want to speak to an expert, but it's quite urgent, so let me know if like anyone is available, to which case you respond, I'm available to chat today, really happy to cover this, like a really short bio in terms of like what your expertise are to cover the subject. If they're looking for a comment on a certain thing, respond them back with the actual ready-made comment that they can literally just plug out and take it. Like, I've done this for clients before and we got featured really easily, because they're so time poor. You've got to know that like they're turning around so many features per week, and whilst it's really big for like us, like from our side to like pitch and get featured, for them it's like you need to make their lives a bit like easier, their workload a bit easier. So just the most important thing is like just read what they're asking for.
Yeah. So if they're looking for a quote, send them a quote, basically.
Exactly. And make sure you always include your name, your expertise, your website. And if you were featured like anywhere before, I think that's a really, really strong one. So, you know, I'm an expert on like sleep and I've been featured in like this, and
good tip.
That's a really good, yes. You always want to include like previous, because sometimes you kind of like want to see a reference or whatever. Just think it makes it a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I guess to know it's like having a good track record with your clients. Yeah. It's having a good track record with the journalists, isn't it? So that is an excellent tip, which I didn't know. So thank you. And finally, we're continuing our theme of joy this season, because I think I'm so passionate about mums, women in general, finding our own selfish joy. You mentioned you don't have a social life, but have you discovered anything that just brings you away from the kids, away from the business, your own pocket of joy?
That's a really good question. I'm actually really bad at this. My husband has noticed the pattern of like,
That's
he always
good husbanding.
It's like, can you just find a hobby? Because he's got like 1,000 hobbies. I've currently got a DIY Land Rover in my garage that's being made. Yeah. I honestly, like, my favorite thing is just like catching up with friends. I don't do it as much as I should. Like, 2 reasons. Like, one, I live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's hard to get that like time with them. Like, a lot of my friends still do live in London. I think honestly, am I happiest is when I'm just like able to make that trip back and like actually see them, because even though like the whole time I'm like quite stressed about leaving the kids and working, whilst I'm actually there, that's like when I can relax and kind of like turn back into like my old self. So I think for the year, my thing is like, because I come to London really often for work, and I think I'm gonna try and like get a little bit better at like actually like scheduling some time in like with my friends and like not talking about work, because it's so easy to get like sucked into like getting, you know, if you're in London like twice a month, I try and organize like all my meetings in that, and then all I do the whole time is just like talk about work. So I'm really like gonna try and get better at like actually, you know, scheduling time for myself and my friends and just like relaxing.
I love that. Do it. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to be in touch in a couple of months, see how you're getting on. Thank you so much. I've loved hearing about your business and motherhood journey. Where can people find you and how can they sign up to Pressflow?
Oh, it's super easy. So pressflow.io, there's a very, very short onboarding form. Fill it out, get on it. Like, it's just such a good opportunity. We really want to open this up to like absolutely every business owner under the planet. And yeah, that's it. There's no fees. There's never going to be any fees for the current level of service. So like there's no, because I feel like a lot of people kind of, I've got this question is like, are you sure that it's free? I'm like, yes, it's free. And they're like, how do you make money? I was like, I don't. Not yet. So yeah, just pressflow.io, get on there. You'll start receiving our emails, hope you get into some really good PR.
Well, again, thank you so much. You know, I can't wait to hear more about you getting some more joy in your life and finding out more about where Pressflow goes over the next few years.
Yeah, exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Ancient and Brave for sponsoring today's episode of the Bump to Business Owner podcast. Try their Find Your Ritual quiz online to find out which of their products will help you achieve your wellness goals. Subscribe and not only will you get your order regularly delivered to your door, you'll also receive a ritual scoop. As a member of 1% for the Planet, 1% of Ancient and Brave sales go towards helping environmental partners working towards a better future for our planet. For more details, go to ancientandbrave.earth. Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.